Hi everyone, welcome to English Error Lab. Are you learning English? Great! Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's start it. In early January 2026, the streets of Iran exploded with protests. These events were very serious, directly challenging the power of the Islamic Republic government. It was a high-stakes moment, like the nation itself was burning. This showed a country deeply divided, pulled strongly between its long past and what it wanted for its future. These were not new problems, but instead they grew from many decades of people feeling unhappy. These protests were not just random events happening by chance. They came from a long history of economic pain where many families struggled to find money and jobs. There was also a strong social division among the people and a deep political frustration with the leaders. The government's way of stopping these protests follows a familiar pattern, one they have used many times before. There were also many accumulated grievances, which means old unsolved complaints from past protest movements. These old problems built up slowly, fueling the current unrest. Soon we will look back at this important history. Now, everyone is asking a critical question. What do these widespread protests truly mean for the 86 million people living in Iran? And how will their lives change? So what will this moment mean for the rest of the world? The government is cracking down hard, trying to stop the people, but the protesters are refusing to back down from their demands. So what was the single spark that ignited this huge firestorm across the entire nation? The first signs. The year was 2026, and January brought new protests to Iran. People gathered in many big cities. Thrown, Mashhad, Isfahan, and Shiraz saw large groups on the streets. These protests did not have one leader. Many different kinds of people joined. Students were there, and so were factory workers. People from all parts of society came out to speak. There were two main reasons for the protests. One reason was money problems. The cost of living was very high. Prices for food and other goods kept going up fast. Many young people could not find jobs. There was a big difference between the rich and the poor. Ordinary family found it hard to live. The second reason was about freedom. People wanted more personal freedom. Women especially wanted the choice not to wear the mandatory hijab. This rule made them cover their heads. Protesters demanded an end to strict social rules. They spoke loudly for change. The government quickly responded. It was a strong and harsh reaction. Security forces like police and soldiers were sent to the cities. They stopped people from gathering. Many protesters and people thought to be leaders were arrested. The government also turned off the internet in areas where protests were happening. This made it hard for people to talk to each other and share news. State TV said that foreign enemies were making the problems. This was a common story from the government. This strong response felt like something seen many times before. The government's actions were almost the same as in past protests. They had crushed dissent in this way before. To understand if this time will truly be different, we must look back at the history of protests in Iran. 3 old problems. Iran has seen many protests before the year 2026. These past events show a long history of people wanting change. We need to look back to understand today's problems and why people are on the streets again. One important time was the 2009 Green Movement. Millions of people went into the streets. They were unhappy about the presidential election results, feeling they were not fair. The protests lasted for months, filling city centers, But the government stopped them with strong force and many arrests. This event revealed deep problems within Iranian society. Later in 2017 and 2018, new protests started. These began because of money problems like high prices and not enough jobs. They quickly spread across the country. Unlike the Green Movement, these protests saw many working-class people and those in smaller towns joining in. Then in November 2019, protests started again. This time it was because the price of fuel suddenly went up very fast. The government reacted very strongly and harshly. Estimates say hundreds of people died and thousands were put in jail. The internet was even shut down for almost a week, stopping news from getting out. The 2022 Woman Life Freedom Movement was another key moment in this history. It began after Mahsa Amini died. While in police custody, her death sparked months of anger across Iran. Women and young people led these protests. They openly challenged the rule that women must wear hijab. This powerful movement showed a deep desire for more personal freedom and rights. Each of these movements was eventually stopped by the government's power, but they did not disappear completely from people's minds. Each protest left behind feelings of unfairness, anger, and broken trust. These old problems and unresolved feelings are like small embers. They kept burning slowly under the surface. Now, in 2026, these embers have fueled the new protests we see today. People remember the past, and they see the same issues happening again and again. While people are angry about politics and social rules which are visible flames, there is a much bigger hidden problem. This deeper issue affects every single citizen's daily life. It is the country's broken economy. Iran has a lot of oil wealth, but many of its people are poor and struggle to live. How did a nation with so much natural wealth become so poor? 4. No money. Iran has much oil and gas. It is rich in natural resources. But most Iranian people are not rich. They face many money problems every day. This is a strange situation for a country with so much wealth. Prices for food and other important things go up very fast. This is called inflation. People's money buys less and less. Many young people cannot find jobs even after university. About 65% of Iranians are under 30 years old. Many feel sad and without hope, often trying to leave the country for work. There are 3 main reasons for these money problems. First, other countries put strong rules called international sanctions on Iran. These rules stop Iran from selling its oil easily and getting money from global banks. This has greatly hurt the country's income and made trade hard. Second, there is much corruption inside Iran. Powerful people use their positions to get rich. They take money that should help everyone. This makes the gap between the rich and the poor much bigger and creates anger. Third, large businesses like those owned by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps IRGC control much of the economy. The IRGC is a military group, but it also owns many companies in building and other areas. These businesses operate with few rules or public oversight. This means a few powerful groups get richer while common people struggle. People see rich families living in big houses and driving expensive cars. These are often families of officials. Meanwhile, many ordinary Iranians cannot afford basic necessities. This unfairness makes people very angry. It creates a deep wound in Iranian society. This big difference has split the country. The older people remember the revolution, but the young people only see a failed future. Young and old. Iran today has a big difference between its young people and its old people. This gap affects how everyone sees their country and its future. Older Iranians remember the 1979 revolution. They lived through the long war with Iraq from 1980 to 1988. For many of them, the current system brought an end to old problems and foreign influence. They saw great sacrifices made to build today's Iran. They value stability and peace even with the problems the country faces. But young Iranians, who are the majority, have no memory of the revolution or the war. They grew up after these big events. They judge Iran not by its past, but by their hopes for the future. Many of them are well educated, going to universities. Yet they find it hard to get good jobs or build the lives they want. They often feel stuck and that their talents are wasted. These young people are connected to the world through social media. They see how young people live in other countries with more freedoms and opportunities. This makes them question why their own country has so many rules. They want more personal freedom, less control over their daily lives, and a better economy. Women play a very important part in this challenge. For them, the fight for freedom is a daily struggle. Laws like the mandatory hijab, which tells women what to wear, are a big issue. Young women often challenge these rules, showing their desire for control over their own bodies and lives. The act of removing a headscarf in public, as seen in recent protests, is a powerful message. It shows a deep wish for change and to decide their own future. These social rules and restrictions are not just old traditions. They are enforced by a special and strong political system. This system is made to keep total control over everyone's lives. But who really makes the big decisions and pulls the strings in this system? 6. Who is in charge? Iran's political system is a mix of old religious rules and newer democratic ideas. It is not like many other countries. And understanding it helps explain why things are difficult for protesters. The highest power belongs to the supreme leader. His name is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and he has been in this role for a long time. He is not chosen by the people's vote. Instead, a special council of religious leaders picks him. The supreme leader holds final power over many important parts of the country. He controlled the armed forces, decides who leads the courts and guides what state television reports. He makes big decisions about Iran's direction and future. This power comes from a religious belief that says a top religious expert should lead the nation. Iran also has elected leaders like a president and a parliament, which is called the Majlis. People vote in these elections. But the power of these elected officials is limited. They cannot always make the big changes that many people want to see. This is because their authority is less than that of the supreme leader and other unelected bodies. One such unelected body is the Guardian Council. This group has 12 important judges. Their main job is to check all laws to make sure they follow Islamic rules. Even more importantly, they decide who can be a candidate for president or parliament. They can stop many people from running for office, even thousands, if they think those people are not suitable. This control over who can run means that voters often have limited choices, making true democracy feel very difficult to achieve. Then there is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, known as the IRGC. This group started after the 1979 revolution. Its first goal was to protect the new government and its ideas. But over the years, the IRGC has grown to be much more than just a military group. It has become a very strong force in both politics and the economy. The IRGC controls many parts of the military, including important missile programs. It also owns and runs huge businesses across different industries, from building roads to making telecommunications. This means the IRGC has vast influence over daily life and national decisions. Often it acts with little check on its power, almost as if it is above the ordinary laws. This strict and powerful system makes it very hard for people to push for big changes from inside Iran. The government has many ways to stop protests and keep its control because of this. Many people who want change may feel they need to look beyond Iran's borders. They might hope for support or attention from other countries. But how is the rest of the world seeing this crisis? 7. The world watches. The world watched Iran closely. Many countries looked at the protests with different ideas and worries. Western nations like the United States and countries in Europe face a hard choice. They wanted to speak up for human rights and support the people protesting. They often said that violence against protesters was wrong. Sometimes they put sanctions on Iranian officials who were said to harm human rights. But these countries also had other important plans. They cared about the nuclear deal with Iran. This deal was made in 2015 to stop Iran from making nuclear weapons. In return, Iran would get help with its economy. However, the United States left this deal in 2018. This caused new problems and sanctions on Iran. So Western nations had to think about these big issues, too. They needed to balance helping human rights with their own plans for world safety. Regional countries also watched Iran. Neighbors like Israel and some Gulf states such as Saudi Arabia had mixed feelings. Israel often worried about Iran's growing power in the region. They watched the protests to see if Iran would become weaker. Some Gulf states also hoped for changes in Iran that could make their own region more peaceful, or at least change the power balance. Inside Iran, the government told a different story. State media often said that the protests were caused by outside enemies. They claimed foreign countries were paying people to cause trouble and break the country. They tried to stop people from seeing real news by cutting off the internet in many places. However, protesters found ways to show the truth. They used social media to share videos and pictures of what was happening on the streets. These videos were often smuggled out of Iran and shared quickly around the world. This made it hard for the government to control all the information. People outside Iran could see the real protests and hear the real voices of the Iranian people. The future for Iran's protesters was not clear. They faced a powerful government inside Iran and complex politics from other countries. Would they be stopped just like past protests? Or would this time be different, leading to big changes? The world waited to see what would happen next. 8. What happens next? Iran's future after these protests is not clear. There are three main paths the country could take. First, the protests might slowly end. People could get tired, or the government's strong actions might stop them. In this case, things would go back to how they were. A tense and unhappy situation. The government might promise small changes, but the main system would stay the same. This has happened before, and Iran would wait for the next crisis. Second, the protests could become much bigger and more violent. This might challenge the government's power in a serious way. This path could lead to a very harsh response from the government, even more violent than before. It could also lead to a complete breakdown of the current government or even a civil war. History shows that governments can fall quickly, but they can also survive big challenges. Third, there could be a way for change to happen slowly and peacefully. This path involves talks and changes coming from inside the government, pushed by the protests and international discussions. This could mean more freedom for people, real elections, fewer rules about how people live, and better economic plans. However, powerful people in the government who like things as they are would fight against these changes. No matter what happens right now, the big problems will not go away. People will still want more money and more freedom. Iran is at a very important point in its history. The way it moves forward will change the lives of many people for a long time. The Iranian people have shown great courage by speaking out and risking so much. Their actions will have a lasting impact. What do you think will happen next in Iran? If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thought in the comments, and subscribe to the channel English Story Hub. It only takes a second, and it really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.